Welcome back, everyone. You're watching Network Africa. According to Egyptian officials, the flight data recorder of the crashed EgyptAir flight MS804 has been repaired. And this comes as French authorities have just opened a manslaughter investigation into the tragedy. The airliner's two recorders were handed to French investigators after being recovered from the wreckage in the Mediterranean. The repaired flight data recorder will now be sent back to investigators in Cairo. And work is continuing to retrieve the voice recordings from the other black box. Let's get the latest from Cairo. We're now being joined by VOA's Edward Iranian. Thank you for speaking to us on the program. We understand that French judges have launched a manslaughter investigation based on the prosecutor's findings and evidence gathered so far. Can you fill us in on what you know about the findings so far?
Well, at the moment, they're going by the findings. I assume that the plane gave to satellites indicating that there had been smoke in the cockpit in one of the lavatories and possibly elsewhere. Those were automatic readings. It's also possible that since they've repaired the flight data recorder, the French authorities have already glanced at some of the information and made a quick judgment. But the prosecutor indicated that she was not excluding the possibility of a terrorist act, just that that was not the likely choice of scenarios that they were working with right now.
I mean, you and I have been following the story quite closely. All through this 2 weeks ago, you know, the report we kept getting was this is likely to be a terrorist attack. This is terrorism related. And now a U-turn completely being treated as manslaughter. What changed that? What do we know? What could she have discovered that made the prosecutor turn around like that and say, no, it looks like this is manslaughter?
Well, I think analysts tend to be herds of lemmings, if you'll forgive my cruel judgment, and they tend to go with whatever is the theory of the moment. And I think we as journalists tend to follow that tendency. I remember an airline, a plane which crashed in the United Arab Emirates at least 5 or 6 years ago, maybe longer. In which the UAE authorities indicated that that was just a mere accident. And a lot of other people thought that it was possible that it was a DHL plane, a transport plane, and they thought, some analysts thought it was carrying copiers from Yemen. And it later turned out that that was something that the terrorists in Yemen were working on, how to bring down a plane with a copier that was sent from Sana'a in Yemen. Now, clearly they don't have all the information. Clearly there are new tricks up the sleeve of terrorists all the time. And just because they conclude or will conclude that this is an accident doesn't necessarily mean it was an accident. And at this point, they have not concluded that it was an accident.
That's right. Sometimes it's good to just make all the findings before making the decisions, or sometimes even making statements. Let's ask you then, have there been any reactions from the Egyptian authorities of these new findings?
The Egyptian authorities have been mum about the investigation. I think they have orders from on high not to say too much. And clearly, if you really don't know what happened, it's probably best not to say much.
That's
the
right.
Civil Aviation Minister indicated at the very outset that he thought it was terrorism. And I think he was reined in after that, or scolded, because he was very loath to make any predictions afterwards. So I don't think anyone really wants to go out on a limb with what happened here. And ultimately, what they decide, you know, they've made some mistakes, in my judgment, over the years in deciding what happened to various planes. And I can tell you that from my experience in Beirut with several important planes that crashed. And without going too far into detail, I think sometimes mistakes are made, sometimes deliberate mistakes are made.
Egypt depends so much on its tourism industry. Has this affected the industry in any, obviously it's maybe too early to say, but have we seen some sort of effect on your market and whatnot?
Well, the market has been affected already by the Russian plane that went down over the Sinai, by various governments that have restricted their flights going into the Sinai. They haven't restricted flights into Cairo so much, but you can see if you try to buy a ticket here in Cairo that the prices have gone down. So obviously there isn't as much demand. So until that demand picks up, the prices have gone down, and air carriers are suffering a little bit.
VOA's Edward Yaranian, always a pleasure to have you on Network Africa. Thank you for speaking to us. And there you have it, Network Africa. Thank you so much for watching. I am Adeshewa Josh. I'll see you again.